So if you are looking for a good fire deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket, there is a couple of different ways that you can go about it. So I'm going to show you the two most popular ones that you can go with. It is going to be the difference between Charizard and Moltres and Arcanine and Moltres. Now, there's definitely a fan favorite out of there. Personally, people will always love Charizard just for the fact that it is Charizard, of course. But the big difference is obviously with the Charizard deck, you have got a free tier evolution that you've actually got to come up against. So as you can see, we've got the two Charmanders, we've got the two Charmeleons, two Charizards, two Moltres, and then we have got ourselves a Potions, we've got the X-Speed, the Pokeballs, the Red Card, two Professor Research, Giovanni, and Sabrina. So a pretty standard deck, same as then the Arcanine. We've then now got two Growlithe, two Arcanine, two Moltres. Now with this one, because the main factor is to try and get Arcanine in rather than anything else, it does leave you with a lot of trainers that, to be honest, are pretty useless. Like, we've obviously got the hand scope, your opponent reveals their hand. We've got then the Pokedex, look at the top of your free cards. They're not necessarily anything that I'm going to personally want to use, but they are to buffer out. Now, I don't actually have a second X-Speed yet, which is just hilarious in itself, so I do need to get one of them, and then that'll be an extra one I would throw in instead, but it's not necessarily the be-all and end-all. So if we go into a battle, we'll kind of just go over what the kind of plan is when it comes to going against these decks and how you want to actually use them. So we're going to start off with the Arcanine and Moltres. Now with this deck, the obvious plan, the same as the Charizard to start with, will be to get a Moltres in and the base Pokemon on your bench. That is kind of like the best start that you can have. When it comes to it, if you don't with the Charizard deck and you manage to get a Charmander first rather than Moltres, it can sometimes throw it. Like for instance with this one right here, we've managed to get the Growlithe first, which isn't ideal. Obviously you kind of want to make sure that you are trying to get in the Moltres first because that's the whole point of their ability. So for instance with this one, we're going to throw in the basic, which hopefully, of course, gives us the second Growlithe, which we can obviously utilize sometimes some other way. So we're going to look at their hand as well. We'll just have a look. It's not necessarily anything important. So you can see they're going to get two different of their starters. They've got 3 Giovanni in there. I didn't even think you could get 3 in there. Oh, no, it doesn't matter. So they've only got 1 of each course. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, not the quantity. So they can get 1 of their Pokemon in. And then obviously we can look at the top of our free decks to see what we've got coming next. So we can see, okay, we got the draw. So we got another Pokemon coming soon. So that will be the Moltres. So obviously with that one, we'll be able to get Moltres in next. Meaning that we either go with the kind of benched Pokemon Growlithe, or we go and change in Moltres with the X-Speed, which is probably what I'm going to do next, because the whole point is to get at least the Moltres in first to be able to get the 3 different energies on the Arcanine straight away. So obviously, as we do know as well, because we haven't got the Arcanine coming soon, we are going to have to try and balance this out a little bit. So we're going to see what he can do and see what we got. So we've got Grimer coming in. We've got the Poisonous Gas, so obviously that's going to activate. This is going to be kind of okay news for Moltres because it does have quite a big hand anyway, so it has a big HP. So we're going to throw that in straight away. What we're going to then do is we're going to pull the Moltres because we've only got 2 Moltreses as the base. We'll chuck that one down. What we'll do from there is we will then X-Speed. We will then move this one out, swap it in, retreat. When I put Moltres in, then obviously we could put the energy, but I'm also going to use Sabrina just to see if they don't have an X-Speed either. So obviously with this, we can use Sabrina to get Farfetch'd in. Even though that does do 40 damage, the poison's just not ideal if you can kind of stay away from it, especially because we know Muck will eventually come in as well. So we're going to get the Inferno Dance, and this is kind of the strategy when it comes to Moltres, and hopefully you do get lucky. Very, very RNG based with the coin flips. Sometimes you can get lucky, sometimes you don't. And literally, it is that kind of how you deal it. And that's why personally I'm a bit more of a fan of the Arcanine deck, just purely on the fact that you've only got to get to the 3 energies and then that's obviously done. If then you can quickly get 2 of them done at the same time, if you're noticing that your opponent's not necessarily getting the hand that they need, then obviously you can kind of capitalize that and have 2 Arcanines fully fledged up and being able to attack straight off the bat, and it can be done every single turn, which is fantastic. With the Charizard deck, I always find that it's really hard to build because you've got to make sure you get the Moltres first, you then get the Charmander on the bench, you got to have then the Charmeleon, then the Charizard, and sometimes you could just be waiting for that one puzzle, and sometimes that can just be enough to allow it to just go to a point where there's no return. If you're going against a Mewtwo or a Pikachu, they are a lot quicker to set up, which is the annoying part, because obviously once that Charizard's gone or the Charmander's gone, that is unfortunate. And that's the RNG base of it, to be honest. That's the bit that is unfortunate. If you don't quite get it set up in time, there's not a lot that you can truly do against it. So, like you see here, really, we've got the draw 2 cards coming up next. Hopefully that does allow us to get an Arcanine, but to be honest, we're not even ready. So, it's not necessarily a big deal if we don't. We need at least one Arcanine set up before the next attack, because obviously, like we can see here, he is going to get the muck, and if your opponent's if your opponent is active, is poison, the attack does 50 more damage. Of course it does. So we've got the Moltres in here, so we're going to have to go ahead, throw this one in, and because Arcanine's not coming now, we've got to have that second kind of bout. Do we go for the Moltres and make sure that we get the 70 damage, or do we pray that we do manage to get at least one Arcanine in soon? And that is awful again. I don't know why I put that second energy on Moltres as well. That's out of habit. That could have been enough to get the Arcanine in. But what we could do from now is set up the next Arcanine and kind of go from there, as realistically he's going to get this next attack in. We're going to be poisoned, so realistically I need the next Arcanine. Otherwise this is going to be pretty much game over from the start. And that's where getting the right attacks in is going to be very, very important. So I'm praying that we do get the Arcanine on the next turn, because then that should... would be 10 off being able to go with it. So Arcanine, no, of course not. So what we're going to have to do here is kind of pray that we do have at least something coming in on the back. So he's going to swap out to Weezing. Of course he is. We'll put the extra energy here and just pray that necessarily what we got. Once during your turn, the Pokemon active spots, make sure opponent active poison. So I think this one's pretty much a GG, to be honest, because even if they do swap out the they might swap him out now, to be honest. Oh, no, I suppose they can't swap Weezing out yet. But, oh, no, okay, of course, he's going to put him back in his deck. Muck's in. That's the game over for Arcanine. So we're going second. We're going to try and set up, and I'm not necessarily going to talk through too much of this. To start with, not a bad start, obviously with the Pokeball there as well. If we can manage to get Growlithe off that first one, that's going to be perfect. And then draw 2 could potentially give ourselves the Arcanine straight off the bat as well. So this could be the better start. So I'm going to swap out into the Pokeball. That's going to give us Growlithe. Nice. That's good. And then we're going to put him in. We then are going to go and draw 2 more cards and pray one of them is Arcanine. Oh, of course it's not. But we do get a free coin bonus, which is very, very nice. That's pretty much Arcanine's setup as soon as we do manage to get him in the deck. Ooh, he's used the red card. Is that enough to give us the Arcanine and where we want to go with this? Oh, it's not. And we get a back-to-back lucky free as well. Very nice. We've seen on the top of our deck that we've got Moltres coming and then Arcanine. So I'm praying we've got enough going here. Obviously, he's going to have the Zapdos in there. The problem will be once we get there is being able to take it out in one. We kind of need a Giovanni as well, just to be able to do that extra damage to take it out in one. I'm pretty sure everything else should be fine. If we could possibly swap him out for Pikachu. He is obviously going for the Peck instead, praying that we obviously get in there. We're going to go with Moltres and take a hit. So we've got Moltres on the bench as well. So what we're going to do here, we're going to throw in Moltres on the bench. We're then going to throw one more into here. And then we are going to start at least a little bit of an attack, because obviously we don't want to necessarily just lie over and take it. But we already have the 6 on Growlithe, so we only need 3, so it really makes no difference to him. So he's going to obviously change into potentially Pikachu, knock out the Moltres, which then we obviously need to we will put Growlithe in, and then we can obviously start going to work. So it should be, he'll then use obviously the, I can't remember what it was, Circle Circuit, was it? What was it? Yeah, Circle Circuit. We're then going to put Growlithe in on the anticipation, knowing that we should have Arcanine next. And that should hopefully then, if it goes to our turn, There's Arcanine. So this is kind of now the start where we can actually start attacking. So we're going to throw him in. We know that necessarily now energies are completely irrelevant. So we're going to throw ahead one on Moltres just in case. Then we can obviously go for the Inferno Outrage. That's going to get rid of his first one. It does give us 20 damage, but which is fine because obviously in the back his Zapdos hasn't got the free energies as well. So he's gonna have to chuck in the second Zapdos here because we know that we could do 120 on the damage. So he's gonna have to do that at a minimum as he does, and knowing that he's gonna have to then power up the Zapdos one more. And then he'll have to kind of take a hit with Zapdos and then potentially swap him out. That's personally how I'd play it just quickly. Obviously, a lot of Pikachus. It's got the immersive Pikachu twice, which is just nuts. So hopefully, if he's smart about it, we will basically put one on the normal Zapdos at the back there. He'll then obviously take the hit with this Zapdos, potentially bring it out, and then hope that his Thunder and Hurricane can take out our Arcanine with the 4 flips. Obviously, we just need 2 of them. So he's gone for the Peck instead. Not quite what I imagined him to do, to be honest. It's a very interesting strategy. Unless he's got a Sabrina waiting in the back there, I really don't see anything that he will do here. So we're going to go ahead. We'll swap that. We'll then go ahead and heal ourselves a little bit. We'll then throw the final energy onto Moltres, and then we're going to go hit. He'll have to back out, but he's not done what I expected him to, because what he'd do here is it will go to 10. Whether he was anticipating that potentially we might have a Giovanni. If we had a Giovanni, that was game over from there. So he's going to have to bring this one out, and then I don't know where he goes from here. Realistically, this was the only chance. He'd have had 2 on this one right here. He could have then swapped them out, and then, but like realistically, this does nothing. Unless he's got something that I don't know. Just wait for him to change. I don't think there's anything you can do here. He's more than likely going to have to just concede. No, he's just let me do it. Okay, fair enough. And there's the Giovanni as well, to be honest. So there we go. The concede was beautiful. Realistically, in that scenario, he probably still could have won and took the gamble. Giving the Zapdos that second one, taking the hit with one of the Zapdoses, then having the X speed to bring it back. If he did have it, then you would have been able to win that match. So let's have a look at the comparison to a Charizard deck. So it's going to be the same model on how you want to set up. You are looking for Moltres first and then looking for the Charmander on the bench. And then it's basically just give as many of your energies to Charmander as much as you can in a quick succession. And preferably you would look to try and have at least Charmander, Charmeleon on the first 2 goes if you can. If you start off with a Charmander, can be a little bit more difficult, but what I've been finding this. I've just not necessarily been able to have a Charmander on the bench, whereas we do have the Pokeball and the Draw 2, which should be pretty good. And we're going against the Mewtwo deck, so he's already started in the best way possible for him. So let's have a look then. So we got Charmander pulled, perfect. So then what we want to do is we will pull another Pokeball, get that out the way. That will obviously give us another Charmander, potentially Moltres is the other one. We'll chuck that down as well. We will then go ahead and draw 2 cards. And then we will go ahead and end the turn. So that's a good setup. Like, we obviously are looking to make sure that we basically get our Charizard in before he gets his Guadavir in, basically. So if he gets Curlier straight away, that could be the issue. So he's got a second Mewtwo in. And another Ralts. Okay, very interesting. He'll obviously go for this attack first. He's then got the draw 2 cards as well. That going to give him Curlier as well. Hopefully not. It's giving us a red card. Okay, this could give us the Charmeleon Charizard that we need, but I mean, it's not necessarily the worst time to have this. We get the we basically get the same again. And there's the Charizard, so that is absolutely ideal, to be honest. So we don't want any more red cards. Normally, I'm very rare to find that we do find 2 red cards in one deck. Normally, there's just 1 and an absolute maximum. So basically with this, if we could get the 3... oh, absolutely outstanding. So that's going to be perfect to start with. Obviously, we're going to chuck as much down on here. So you kind of got 2 different ways now, because we know that we've got 4 for the Crimson Storm. He's got 2 different Mewtwo's. So once you put, obviously, Charizard in, you then will be basically back to 1 energy per go. So what I would potentially be looking at here, he's going to go with a 50. We then know that he hasn't got Curlier as of yet, so we could tank one more at a minimum, and we have got the X speed. So what I would suggest here would be is if I go ahead and add Charizard in, he might even fold at this point knowing that we're ahead basically. So what I'd do from here, I'd throw one more on him, and then instead of changing for this turn, I will just try my luck and try again with the flips. Knowing my luck, this is going to be 3 zeros, but at least one. No, of course. So this is going to be a little bit more tricky to obviously navigate now, because I could have done with at least like 1 or 2 extra, just because we are going to discard 1 or 2 more. So what we'll do from here is we'll basically bring Moltres out. We'll get rid of the one Moltres, one Mewtwo, and pray that he doesn't get to Guadavir before we manage to do 2 more turns. And we pretty much then should be set. Like, there shouldn't be much more that he can do from here, because he hasn't got that Curlier straight in. And this is where the RNG does come into it, because if obviously he managed to get the Curlier straight away, so he's actually gone a different way of this. He's gone for the Sabrina, which obviously is going to hit the 50, which is absolutely fine. He can do that. I was going to bring him in next turn regardless, so he's already started on that next Mewtwo, knowing that this first Mewtwo is basically a sacrifice. So he's kind of hoping he needed Curlier in this turn, but I'm assuming, yeah, he doesn't have it. So that's kind of good bonus for us, to be honest. That's absolutely fine in the way. We've obviously got the heal as well, which is even more perfect. So we're going to throw that in. This pretty much should be a game over from here. We're going to throw that in. We'll obviously go with the Crimson Storm. And to be honest, he probably could just concede from this, just because we know that we're going to get one more turn. He's only going to be able to hit a 50 at an absolute maximum with this, because he doesn't have that Guadavir in. If he had Curlier and then into Guadavir, he might have been able to, but now it's pretty much GG's. But that is probably the best RNG I've had from the Charizard deck. Normally what I'm finding, I'll miss a Charmeleon, I'll miss a Charmander. I've had some where Charizard is basically, I've got 2 of them, and both of them were the back deck of it. I literally had 3 cards left, both of them were Charizard, so they are dependent. So we're going to just play around a little bit here. I could obviously go ahead and just change, and I'd even be fine. So we're going to go throw that in, and then we know that we've got the Storm coming. So 210, game over. Personally for me, if I was to pick between the two, I am much more of a fan of the Arcanine for the easier route. Charizard's obviously a great damage dealer if you do manage to do it, but Arcanine for me, with the fact that you don't have to discard anything, will be my personal favourites between the Charizard and the Arcanine deck.